Hello everyone. My name is Dmitry Vostokov and I introduce pattern-based software diagnostics today. I decided to keep this presentation short and as simple as possible. If anything needs to be added or modified in the future, I create another version of it. Prerequisites. These are very simple, and I suppose you all, like me, enjoy diagnosing software problems, troubleshooting, and debugging. First, I would like to remind you a definition of a software diagnostics we put forward in one of our previous webinars. Originally, it only included pattern-driven and systemic analysis methodologies. We recently added pattern-based part. What it is about, I hope you learn during this presentation. Next, we would like to mention a definition of a software diagnostics pattern. There are some differences with the usual definition of a pattern from software construction, such as architectural and design patterns. The difference is that often upon a diagnostic encounter, we provide recommendations and possible solutions instead of just problem solutions, like when we design software. So you see that software diagnostics is about patterns and pattern recognition. Let's say it is pattern-oriented and includes pattern-based and pattern-driven parts. Pattern-driven is about diagnostics process, and pattern-based is about pattern lifecycle. We first start with the pattern-driven part. To repeat, pattern-driven means finding patterns of abnormal structure and behavior in software execution artifacts, such as memory dumps, software logs, and network traces. To help with this, there are checklists and pattern catalogs, and tools, of course. There are so many identified patterns that I dubbed this present situation as a pattern cloud. One way to make this cloud helpful is to have several pattern catalogs. A pattern catalog is just a collection of patterns according to some criteria. So we first classify catalogs and then partition them into sections for easy navigation and search. We can classify catalogs by abstraction, for example, as software diagnostics meta-patterns, which are patterns of software diagnostics itself. Then we can classify catalogs by the type of software execution artifacts, such as software traces and logs, memory dumps and network traces. When you download this presentation later on, you can follow all links. Another classification is by story type, such as by problem descriptions, by software disruptions, and by user interface problems. Also, we can separate patterns by intention, such as malware, with unintentional patterns, the rest all grouped as victimware. Some catalogs become large and need partitioning. Memory dump analysis pattern catalog, for example, consists of more than 250 patterns. Software log analysis pattern catalog consists of more than 60 patterns. For example, we can partition memory dump analysis patterns by execution space or problem type, such as crash, hang, spike, or leak. We can also partition them by structure and behavior. For example, to create a smaller catalog for structural memory patterns. Another fruitful partition is by object types, such as threads, processes, modules, exceptions, stack traces, or by actions, such as various wait chains, contentions, resource contentions, deadlocks, and live locks. Software trace analysis pattern catalog is based on structural software narratology. Ultimately, patterns are found on specific platforms. By pattern implementation, we mean diagnostics differences in different operating systems and product lines. Now a few words about forms of software diagnostics patterns. Based on pattern definition, we propose at least 3 forms here, and they should be fairly intuitive if you do any software support and software maintenance. Of course, patterns are not diagnosed in isolation and they form networks. Such networks can be intra-catalog, originally called pattern interaction or cooperation, such as associated patterns in memory dumps or software logs, or inter-catalog patterns, pattern networks, such as between user interface problem patterns, software traces, and memory dumps, for example. I put links here for some case studies. You can follow later on when you download this presentation. Most software architects I talk to think that architecture and low-level memory contents are separate things from different layers of abstraction. Fortunately, it is now possible to connect them through patterns, as you can see on this picture. We can also map design and implementation patterns and idioms to patterns of software behavior and the other way around. One example of implementation mapping is static code analysis patterns, and I put a link on this slide. A few words about pattern sequences. These are more specialized forms of pattern networks and are sets of patterns that have definite causal links. Looking at software diagnostics cases, it is easy to see that some patterns precede others. For example, heap corruption causes an error message box and then blocks other threads, creating conditions for another pattern to appear, wait chains. Blocked threads may block other coupled processes, creating inter-process wait chains and finally inter-machine wait chains. Some patterns are most likely found in succession, and other patterns are less likely to affect abnormal conditions. Such pattern sequences can help in troubleshooting, debugging, and root cause analysis. Finally, we come to pattern-based. What is under the umbrella of pattern-based part, such as pattern and pattern catalog evolution, was implicit in our definition of software diagnostics that was initially just called pattern-driven. However, the recognition of pattern-based part in software design engineering, I show you a link later, led to explicit naming of this part in software diagnostics. And you can see it is about pattern evolution, catalog evolution, and catalog distribution. So catalog evolution, now a few words. Of course, like medical diagnostics, software diagnostics is evolving. New recurrent patterns are constantly found in artifacts and described. This is one way to expand pattern catalogs. Another way is to predict patterns based on pattern implementation. For example, if you find a new pattern in Mac OS X code dump, we should assess if the same kind of a pattern exists or possible in Windows memory dumps, and vice versa. Another example are network trace analysis patterns that can be predicted from more general software trace analysis patterns. Other ways of pattern evolution are pattern splits, when one pattern becomes too general, and pattern unification, when we have many specializations that differ only in minor details. And sometimes it is possible to create entirely new catalogs, as was recently done with software disruption patterns. A word about tools, packaging and delivery. Software Diagnostics Services is working on Software Diagnostics Workbench with nicely formatted pattern catalogs, having easy navigation, explanations, revised and extended command to pattern maps, typical software diagnostics case studies, and lots of other practical information. All this should appear in spring. It was a bit delayed from last year, so it would be a better version of Software Diagnostics Institute catalogs, where it's not easy to navigate. You have on the left and on the right memory analysis patterns, and down you have trace analysis patterns and other patterns. So what are economic benefits from Software Diagnostics Workbench? We hope that pattern-oriented software diagnostics has such tangible economic benefits as well, including, for example, quantifiable analysis such as the number of patterns searched and the number of patterns identified, because it is difficult usually to quantify analysis reports with patterns and pattern catalogs. It is very easy. And finally, we come to further reading. So there are two sections, pattern-based software construction and pattern-based software diagnostics. The first book from software construction list is about architectural patterns. I mentioned on the slide about the Great Divide. The second book on pattern languages is very useful as an introduction to construction patterns in general, and some ideas are applicable to post-construction phase 2. The third book on patterns-based software engineering is focused on software construction too, and prompted me to add pattern lifecycle to software diagnostics that was implicit there. And I also included other links to relevant presentations and books focused on software post-construction phase, including software diagnostics, troubleshooting, and debugging. So some of you are also waiting for volume 6 of Memory Dump Analysis Anthology. It is almost finished and should appear by the end of January. And now about our next free webinar. It is on philosophy of software diagnostics. The great Roman physician and philosopher Galen once said that to be the best medic you need to be a philosopher. So the same, we believe, is true for software diagnostics. And finally, questions and answers, if you have any. I'm also very interested in how to improve this introduction for version 2, so please send your comments and suggestions. If I can't answer your questions now, I then post it on Software Diagnostics Services website later this week or so. So thank you for attendance. I keep this window, keep this running for a few minutes, so if you have questions, please ask. So there is a question about slides download. Yes, of course, you all get the recording of this presentation and also slides. So you should get a notification from GoToWebinar in 1 or 2 days. And I also create a section on website. So thank you for attending. Yeah, if you have questions, of course you can ask. Okay, if you're interested in deadlock, software diagnostics patterns, what I show you, there is a bit better dialogue because it is a better catalog because it is it has some links to object and action classifications. So I put the link to this catalog, and there is also classification here called deadlock and live log patterns page. Just wait a second, please. So here you can find patterns related to deadlocks in different spaces. And you can find also some case studies. But there you have to search for deadlock pattern. So it's pattern cooperation. There are more than 70, I believe, case studies there. Just search for any deadlock. So you can look. Okay, memory overflow, memory leak. Okay, so there are examples. If we go back to for example, there are categories. For example, if you're interested in memory leaks, like insufficient memory patterns, for example, is category. There are also overflow patterns, stack overflow patterns. So this classification is ongoing. So for example, I recently added thread patterns, process patterns. So did I answer your questions about examples for some categories? So when you download slides, I believe, I put some links there too. So this is all ongoing. That is what is called pattern based. So it is all ongoing, and I believe that, I hope that during this year, I create more classification, add additional classifications. So you have chat. So I put some links in the chat, and I also put these links into questions and answers section. So what I put, insufficient memory patterns, and one, and the other is, for example, overflow, stack overflow, but I probably should create some general overflow classification. Okay, there are some questions. Okay, I hope I answered your questions. If not, please let me know. So you'll get all these links that I posted into chat window. And of course, you could see them, all these in recording. Okay, you get PPT, you get PDF file with all links that should be automatically in 1 day, in 1 or 2 days, but I also post this on Memory Dump Analysis Services, dumpanalysis.com this evening, so you should probably download it by tomorrow morning, or in 4 or 5 hours. Yes, if you don't go to any websites, it should be automatically mailed to those who attended and those who for some reason couldn't attend in 1 or 2 days. That's the feature of GoToWebinar. So I believe if you don't get any links in 2 days or 3 days, then you probably should better visit website. Okay, if you have any questions, you can ask. Another question I have is, do I have any plans for other seminars on crash analysis? Further, there might be seminars. Maybe I update complete memory dump analysis or do something. I don't have definite plans now, but if you want to see GDB in action or WinDBG in action, you can go to Debugging TV, debugging.tv, and there are lots of sessions using WinDBG, GDB, Mac OS X, Windows, and also some related to software trace analysis. So these are all free. And also some demonstrations. Demonstrations can be found, I think, in some presentations. That's presentations tab on Software Diagnostics Services. I think there's some recording available for cloud memory dump analysis, fundamentals of complete crash and harm memory dump analysis, victimware. So just try to look there. So these are all free materials. Another question about debugging TV frames. Is it related to just trace debugging and analysis? No, it's just the fancy name, debugging TV, and frames. Frames is just the name of the program. So just some catch frames to catch bugs. It's just the name of the program, and sessions are different. Some of them about live debugging, some of them about post-mortem analysis, some about tracing. Okay, thank you very much for all your questions. If you have any other questions, please ask. Thank you also all for attendance and listening. Anyway, if you have any other questions, you can always contact me and ask. And I try to do my best. Okay, I try my best to email participants for future webinars. Thank you very much. Yes, I have entire list. I plan actually to combine all attendance from this and other webinars and send some infrequent emails with an option to opt out. Okay, thank you very much for attendance and see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.